I'm Samantha Ski. I'm with She Knows Media, and we are here to talk about how you can empower consumers, women specifically, through media and marketing, media and advertising. This is definitely a lighter topic than the one we just followed, but I think has a really pervasive impact on societal norms and stereotypes. So while it feels frivolous sometimes to contemplate how women are represented in advertising, as someone who's lived her career in the industry, I think it really is an area where we can make change, and it's been wonderful to see the change that's been made with recent campaigns. So as Claudia mentioned, women control 86% of all household purchase decisions. Currently in the US, women are responsible for $14 trillion of spending. We are the most empowered consumer group, and it turns out we don't really love to see women sexualized in advertising. This has been, for decades, male creative directors have put sexualized females into advertising to sell anything from a car to a cosmetic solution. And it's interesting that it's finally maybe changing a bit, that some mainstream products that are going after mainstream consumers are actually beginning to contemplate how they're representing those mainstream consumers through the images they employ and the mechanisms, the marketing mechanisms they deploy. So this is like a crazy, amazing panel of women who are going to share with you their experiences in helping to drive this change and what they're seeing. So Tanya, Pamela, Linda, you got their bios on the way out. I'm going to start with Pamela, who's with Getty Images, because there's probably the most direct relevance around what I'm referring to and what we sort of informally refer to as femvertising, the idea that you can empower women and girls while also selling products. What have you seen? You guys created an amazing collaboration with Lean In. And tell us what the drivers of that initiative were, how it's been received a year and a half in. Tell us.
Absolutely. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the Lean In collection is a collection of images that we at Getty Images created. And these images are images of women who have agency, they have power, they're comfortable in their own skin, they're not objectified women. And really the purpose of the collection is to break gender stereotypes. So we also have images of men in there, although they're working against a lot of the hyper-masculinized messages that so many of us have seen. And we had a very good fortune in partnering with Sheryl Sandberg and Lean In, and really using her platform and her amazing amplification powers to really spark a visual dialogue and to work very, very closely not only with her and with our photographers to make the collection, but then with our customers who are the largest advertising agencies in the world, the biggest brands in the world, designers, media channels, everyone you can think of is a customer of Getty Images. So we then not only created the collection, but started this real conversation to try to encourage them to then license the images. And it's been tremendous. I had very, very high hopes for it. And the success of the collection has far blown away.
Across all different categories of industry? It's not
right.
just beauty products?
No, not at all. Some of our biggest licensors of the Lean In collection are in the tech industry, in financial industries, which are spaces that really need to envision new paradigms of gender. So it's been so empowering to see. And even more than that, Getty Images traditionally has been a business to business. And yet the Lean In collection, when we created it, it reverberated in the consumer space too, and that's been so heartening.
That's so cool. That's amazing. And so Tanya, hard to talk about symbolic conversation through images without hearkening to the cape, the dress, the story that you created around the symbol on the women's bathroom sign, which is, she's like a badass viral sensation, as well as
that's French for sensation. Sensation.
Yes. So do tell us, how did you come up with this image? You're the chief evangelist of sorts at Access, which is awesome, but also there's this this incredibly compelling campaign that hinges on such a simple concept.
Yeah.
If you could tell us about your inspiration for that.
Totally, and I think that actually Pamela said it best. I mean, I and we at Axosoft set out to create sort of a visual dialogue and a literal textual conversation. So we were on the cusp of sponsoring a big Girls in Tech event in Arizona, Arizona-based. And Arizona hasn't been sullied by Silicon Valley yet. And I had been on the job about 3 months. I come from theater. I know nothing about software. And I took a job as an evangelist because I thought it would freak my Jewish mom out. And I didn't know this. I literally thought, like, my first day, I'm like, well, what do we do at AxoSoft? And they're like, we're a B2B SaaS, project management software for software developers. And I'm like, I have no idea what came out of your mouth, except for I knew the B2B, that's when you convert one of your bedrooms into a tiny hotel. Right? No, I didn't know. So I knew nothing, and we're on the cusp of sponsoring this big event, and my boss says to my colleague Sarah and I, we're sponsoring, and she's one of 2 CEOs in all of Arizona, which is like, yay, and it's complicated. And so she's like, come up with a big idea. We're sponsoring it in a big way for women in tech. And I'm like, so all that pressure led to nothing. And then I went for a walk, and I started thinking about women in the tech space and women in every space, and how we're often unseen, unheard, and not celebrated for the superheroes that we are every day. And I thought about symbology as a way to connect across cultures, and I came up with the bathroom lady. She's everywhere. Oh, nope, that's not her. She's everywhere. She's everywhere in the world. She gets around, that lady. And so I brought the bathroom lady back to Sarah, and I said, I've got the bathroom lady. And she's like, great. And so I started making this gesture of unzipping, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think she has a cape on underneath there. And she's like, it was never a dress. And I'm like, ah! And so I printed out the vector, and I made a few lines and could see her revealed. And when my perception had shifted, and I'm a pretty smart human being, I thought, and this is something I see every day, it will transform the way I see this space every day and offer visual options for who we are in the world. And so that was sort of the beginning of this AxoSoft It Was Never a Dress campaign.
It's amazing. Yeah. That's like a woot, I think. And such a fun story to hear, and such a great gellable image. Like, you can really see the moment where you think, oh wait, that thing I've assumed is a dress, maybe it's a cape. Maybe I could see this image differently. Maybe it could represent something different for the women and girls we reach every day. Okay, moving to Linda, who is one of the women who wears capes in my mind. Linda has a long legacy and career of working with financial services, which is one of the more, probably in my mind, a more traditional space for representing roles, inadvertently perhaps stereotypes. But I think Citi, your long-term employer, has done lots of excellent work around sort of positive imagery and positive enhancements for women's roles in the workplace and at home. How did you, in that role, contemplate what your impact could be for women and bring that to a big corporation that is so seemingly traditional?
Well, and I think a lot of what inspired us was, quite frankly, enlightened self-interest. You look at the numbers, Samantha, that you and Claudia mentioned. Women control $14 trillion in spending, influencing everything from groceries to where the family vacations to which financial products, not only the day-to-day financial chores, but how families plan and save for retirement. They're planning for their parents. They're influencing their children. So if you can convert a woman to be a client and an advocate, you're really affecting 3 generations of relationships, and that helps you build sustainable income. You also look at your workforce, and again, it's the numbers. Girls are outpacing boys in college. Women are coming into the organization. You want to find a way to retain them, and so you have to present a very different image. And so what the work that I did was, how do you bridge the professional and the personal and really talk to women as the chief everything officer of their life and their career, and be present with her wherever she is, respecting that she's not one-dimensional. Right. So many of us, we wake up, we may be a parent and have parent duty, and then we're a fashionista, and then we're an entrepreneur, and then we may be a soccer mom, we're a philanthropist, we wear all these hats, and it's really talking to her based on the hat she wears at that time, and being present where she's having conversations in a way that's adding to the conversation and not talking to her about one thing and not telling, but teaching, listening, and meeting her on her terms.
Great. And so these are all amazing examples, I think, of how we subtly can shift from stereotypes in the media, things that we are seeing between 3,000 and 20,000 ads a day, according to Yankelovich, which is a huge disparity, but still even 3,000 sounds like way too many. So recognizing that advertising, which is funded by corporations primarily, has a huge impact on the world that we are perceiving around us and what we think is possible for our women, for our girls. But this has been the case for a long time, and frankly, women have been the primary spenders or decision makers in the home for the past 3 decades. Why is it shifting now? Why is it not sort of an us versus them in terms of female empowerment of ladies themselves, women themselves fighting? Why are women saying enough is enough on the slutty ads? Like, why women who love makeup are saying, I don't want to see a woman who's sort of tangled up in her own body on an ad, on the spread in Vogue. I want to see a woman who can look at the camera and who has, maybe like is going to live to the next day in terms of her body weight. Wow. And that's something that. So when did that happen and why? What are the? Because we know women have been spending for a while. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is an answer to a lot of our questions, but social media to me is the #1 driver, because for the first time in history, it's more females than males who are holding the proverbial mic. More females than males use Facebook, use Tumblr, use Pinterest, all of these image sharing platforms. They're sharing images of themselves, and they're leading conversations, and men are being exposed to these conversations. So to me, that's the #1 driver.
Yep, great.
I think it's organizations and conversations like She Summit that are elevating this. And because of social media, you can reach a broader audience. But women's organizations are coming together and working collaboratively in a way that I don't think we've ever seen before. And by standing together, and I think we're voting with our dollars, right? We are saying, if this is the image, this isn't me, I'm not going to put my money in a product and with a brand that doesn't reflect my values. We have more choices. And social media gives us the ability to really elevate that conversation and shape perceptions. And I think it's a little bit of fear on the part of brands, because we're also the employers of tomorrow. And more women are getting to mid-career and saying, you know what, I don't need this. This isn't a culture that I want. I'll go out and create my own business. So it's a bit of the fear of the brain drain that's happening. So you have to change both your external and your internal. My fear is, though, and concern is that we're changing things in the marketing space, how we're talking to customers, but our organizations still pulling through internally.
Are we walking the walk?
All walking the walk. And
that,
that,
what do you think
to
about
me,
that?
I think there's still a lot of work to do. When you think about less than 14% of Fortune 500 CEOs are women. We make up the minority of corporate board seats. 3% of creative directors are women. There's a lot of opportunity for change to happen, and I think if organizations and companies don't pull through, then it's the same thing that happens on environmental and sustainability issues.
Greenwashing.
Greenwashing.
Femwashing.
So,
Wait, that sounds like a product.
That sounds something else. That's something
and ultimately, your employees are your biggest brand ambassadors.
Yep.
And so the dollars have to start there, and raising all employees will help you build your client base.
Absolutely. So walking the walk behind the scenes. Have you guys seen anything in this area or had any fear? It makes me think. So Getty Images makes it easier in the Lean In collection for us to represent, a more empowered, less stereotypical version of a female consumer or female leader or female citizen. But does that translate behind the scenes, and how do we put the onus on the organizations?
Well, one thing I think that's actually allowed women to sort of shift their perceptions of what it means to be a woman in many spaces has to do with the arts and technology. And I say this because, talking about this connection between work culture and our alignment with our lives and work and all of that, within AccessSoft and now in a lot lot of tech spaces. We've inserted the A for STEAM, not STEM. So we're inserting the arts. And what technology has allowed us to do is to go to artists who existed before anybody within these sort of marketing and campaign spaces and investigate women who've been cut out of art history. So, you know, you look to, actually, I was thinking about this panel, and recently, this is like contemporary art history. You have women like Barbara Kruger, I'm sure you own some images, who have been totally taking the medium of advertising to poke at advertising for women. She's the one who says, you know, among other slogans, I shop, therefore I am. Also Jenny Holzer, who's used advertising to turn advertising on itself. One of Jenny's projections is raise boys and girls the same way. So it makes us think about these constructed cultures and ideas of power and sexuality and all of this stuff. So I think that actually going into other disciplines that we can now, we don't have to, there's no hierarchy within the arts anymore. We have access to it through technology. And there are a lot of people who came before us who've been talking and identifying these issues and actually doing things, Guerrilla Girls, doing things about them. So, yeah.
Interesting, very cool. And I think, Pamela, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, in terms of a very literal way in which this has changed the culture, I can talk about Getty where I work.
Yep.
I would, you know, never say the Lean In collection is the only reason why our culture has changed, but our CEO and co-founder, Jonathan Klein, he recently announced that he's going to be stepping up, as he says, to chairperson. So we just hired a new CEO. She's a female. We have a female CMO. We have a female CFO. I mean, it's really incredible. And I do think some of that is the fact that times are changing, and Getty really is at the forefront of that change. And I'm so proud to see that we are walking the walk and not just talking the talk.
That is amazing, and those are amazing like actions that really, and I think to your point, bring Getty. Getty is suddenly a consumer brand. It's become more of a not just B2B, like it's not just like commoditized, like are these images cheaper than those? It's like these guys stand for something. And I think that to Linda's point, as there is this proliferation of products, it's very hard to find any product that is only produced by one company and that's truly differentiated. So you have to figure out, if you're gonna be a wallet activist, where do I put my dollars? Who do I believe in? I've got $20 and a desire to see the world be a better place. We all have to think about whether we're going for sustainability, gender equality. There's lots of things we can represent with our wallet activism, but we are seeing that gender roles being more equal and diversified is something that a lot of our research is pointing to as a really positive direction for corporations. So, flipping page a bit, what's up with like no one will call themselves a feminist?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, like
crazy.
what's up with that? Are you guys seeing this? Are you guys seeing this? I'm seeing this. And
Mark Ruffalo wrote something about.
yeah, there's a lot of something
Yeah,
about
go on.
this,
Sorry,
right?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
there's a interesting trend that we're tracking with celebrities, with regular citizens who are a little bit insecure about referencing themselves as feminists. And as a like Gen Xer, dyed-in-the-wool, angry feminist. No, I'm just kidding. I have sort of a problem with that, bitches. And so I'm wondering, because we have a lot of different, although we probably share a lot of the same values, we have a lot of different access points and perspectives represented here. What do we think the issue is with identifying as a feminist in 2015? Anyone take it?
Oh, goodness.
I see you leaning in.
Yeah, leaning
I'm like leaning over. I actually am seeing some heartening things. I think it depends on generation, what generational strata someone is weighing in on the conversation. I'm actually seeing younger people resurrecting that word. I remember when Beyonce, I think it was like 2 years ago at the VMAs, she danced in front of the word feminist and then defined the word feminism for, I think it was like 10 million viewers around the world. People like Taylor Swift and Lena Dunham using that word. And that really matters. That's impacting so many generations to come. So I'm actually heartened when I hear things like that. But I think, I think people are afraid to alienate the other half of the world and to make more friction in the world. We're all trying to come together and make beautiful, wonderful things happen, and that's important. But I also think the word matters. I do. I love calling myself a feminist.
And I think the word matters.
I agree. I think for a certain generation, if you say you're a feminist, it's almost translated as you're putting men down.
Yeah.
And it's embodied in other political ideology when in fact it's really about self-expression and self-determination. So I do sense that, but I am hearing younger women embrace it. And that inspires me. And I think it's important for that it be, disassociated with particular political ideology, because other than we defeat the purpose, because the whole purpose of feminism was that we could all make choices and be able to make choices that we are comfortable with without judgment.
Yep. You?
I'm a Gen Xer too. What can I say? No, I could tell you a long story, but we don't have the time for it. But it involves a women's studies class. This is all I'll tell you. This was in 1990, and the professor was like, when I say the word feminism, what comes to mind? And then you hear it like randomly, like, dyke, hairy legs, da-da-da, ba-ba-ba. And I think that, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm all those things. I must be a feminist. I'm shaved. Thank you. No, but I mean, at the end of the day, the irony of it all, the irony of like people feeling left out of that conversation is that feminism at its root is about equality. It's about civil rights for women. It's when we see women differently, we see the world differently. That's it. That's like it.
Totally.
And so that's the irony. But
and the reason I equate that to this conversation is that I love all of your takes, and that I think the inclusiveness of an evolving case for feminism is important and does reflect on the way we're seeing the media portray genders. And to that end, we're starting to see men play less traditional roles sometimes, which I think, just to allude to your partner, Cheryl, that her insistence that men play a more active role in domestic duties and in childcare is an important component in Anne-Marie Slaughter's recent book that I'm like midway through right now, indicating that a lot of the structures that exist that we struggle with as feminists, as women, have a lot to do with the roles others around us play and the expectations of others around us. Are you seeing in media, in marketing, a shift in the way men are treated, boys are treated?
Absolutely. I'll just jump in. So Sheryl Sandberg, what I think you're talking about is she recently launched Lean In Together, which is a really tremendous campaign about getting men involved. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to include images of men in the Lean In collection and show them being tender, nurturing, involved, capable of doing the laundry and holding a child without dropping them. And I know, because a lot of those images that we've seen are actually really condescending, and they're insulting to so many wonderful men who are in the world already doing those things. You talked about femvertising. Another word was coined early this year around the Super Bowl, dadvertising.
Yes.
Because suddenly dad is really seen as a protagonist, and he's being sold soap and detergent and Swiffers now, which is really, it seems almost archaic to be like, oh, guys can clean too, but it actually is a sea change in terms of the visual space. And the more we see inclusive images of men and women and forward-looking images of men and women, the more we're all going to change and be comfortable with fluidity across those gender lines.
Absolutely.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think it's just so important for the young men in our lives to see those images, because it's not just about empowering and encouraging young women to be, right, but for young men to view the world differently as well. And the images of men and women in different scenarios doing things together as partners will help shape the minds of all of our children.
Yeah, and I'd like to say I agree with you in terms of, genders coming together, and also within the tech space, you have girls who are like ages 12 to 17 that totally drop off of any STEAM field because they don't see themselves in the teacher, they don't see themselves in the girl sitting next to them. And so what we've done at Exosoft, you have this viral campaign, there's a responsibility. And what we did is we started, and it was never a dress STEAM conference for 12 to 17-year-old girls. So that, and we continue to mentor them. We become their advisors, we're their advisory board, they boss us around. They're fantastic. But that said, you know, two of the young women that I'm advising, one started an engineering club at her high school, and it's 15 boys and her, and she started it. She's doing all the work. And she's like, and you know, when it came time to see who's president, I'm like, well, you know, I'm president. I've done all the work. And the 15 boys are like, no, you're not. And they're kind of, so I think that there needs, so what we're trying to do is nurture the next generation of young women so that boys and girls feel comfortable talking to each other, because right now, when these girls go into these spaces, they don't even feel comfortable having a voice. Yeah. And so that's what we're trying to do.
That's the majority of them.
Yeah.
A lot of it we're all doing good work on, I think hard work on. And you can feel sometimes when you live in a coastal town, city, that it's all cool now, because like there's more kids at Pixel Academy that are girls than there are that are boys, but we're in Brooklyn and it's like a bubble. So, okay, I'm out of time almost, but on that note, so whether driven by, you know, slight fear of losing our consumer base in some cases for brands, or fear of alienating a workforce, or concerns, which is great. Fear we can use as a positive, you know, driver of change, or because we all, you know, up here at least, work in media, technology, marketing, and find that we can do something good for the world through the messages we convey. It does seem like there is a sea change at work. So let's keep doing that, okay? Yay.
Agree.
Hi, I'm Claudia Chan, and I'm the founder of She Summit. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with your friends and community. At She Summit, we believe there is a leader and change agent inside everyone, and our goal is to unleash you to lead change from where you are for issues that you care about to benefit your life, your family, your workplace, and even the world. There's so many ways to follow us if you're interested in this leadership content. You can actually subscribe to this YouTube channel, of course, but also visit our website where you can sign up for our newsletter and learn more about our community, new leadership courses that we're rolling out, and our 2019 She Summit conference. And I also just launched a podcast based on my book. It's called the How We Rise Leadership Podcast. So please follow us. There's so many ways to follow us. And I'm so excited for you to join our new generation of leaders to lead change again for our lives and for the world.